in the closet. Shirley. Hello. Shirley. With a small shove, Shirley's chin fell out of her hand and she awoke from her daydream. Her gaze then transferred to her friend Carol, who had pulled her away from such sweet thoughts. "What do you want, Carol?" A slow smile took shape on her lips, and her blue eyes began to twinkle as she teasingly murmured, "Daydreaming about Mr. Buffy Pants over there?" Carol nodded her head towards the football team's quarterback, Michael Collins. A light yet hearty laugh erupted from her lips as she caught sight of Shirley's bemused gaze. "You can't deny it, silly. You were totally drooling." With a shake of her head, which caused her short black bob to fall from behind her ears, Shirley denied Carol's claim. "I wasn't drooling over him." When her friend simply laughed again, a small sigh escaped her lips. "If only I could tell you who I was really drooling over," Shirley thought. Her eyes flickered again to the area where Michael Collins sat conversing gaily with his buddies. Shirley's gaze, however, was focused on a dainty, fair-haired woman. She took in her worn-out blue jeans, loose t-shirt, and hand-me-down sweater. Shirley also took note of her stringy hair that was loosely pulled back while she hunched over a book. "You're doing it again." "Doing what again?" Shirley inquired as her gaze again landed on Carol. "Drooling," her friend muttered with a light chuckle. Shirley frowned and wiped at her mouth and chin. "Damn," she thought, "she wasn't kidding." With a shake of her head, she looked up and met Carol's curious sapphire-like gaze. "What now?" she asked. "You have a booger hanging out of my nose, too?" Carol simply giggled. "No. I just don't see why you don't fess up to daydreaming about Mike." Shirley frowned. "I wasn't daydreaming about him," she muttered. Thankfully, the school bell rung. Shirley escaped Carol's watchful gaze. With a frustrated sigh, she headed straight for the door, her bag hastily thrown over her shoulder and her books bundled in her arms. In her haste to escape, however, Shirley accidentally bumped into Michael, dropping her books and bag in the process. "Fuck," she muttered under her breath and dropped on her haunches to pick up her belongings. "Oh, I'm sorry," she heard someone mutter. Shirley lifted her gaze to discover that it was Michael whom had breathed the apology, his handsome smile directed at her. "Let me help you." "No, no," she whispered as he bent down to help her. "It's all right." As she quickly claimed her fumbled items, Shirley stood up. The room began to spin as she did so, and realized that she'd stood up too quickly. Michael reached out to steady her as she swayed on her feet. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded silently and clutched her things closer to her chest. Shirley's gaze swiftly lifted to see Carol walking out of the classroom after having nudged her and muttered a soft ahem. "Well, all right, if you say that you're okay, I'll take your word for it." Shirley's gaze returned to find that Michael was leering at her playfully. She quietly nodded and turned to walk out. She made it halfway down the crowded hallway before Carol caught up with her. "Shirley, wait up!" "Shit," she quietly thought to herself. Already knowing... Hold on for a second, please. She quietly nodded and turned to walk out. She made it halfway down the crowded hallway before Carol caught up with her. "Shirley, wait up!" "Shit," she quietly thought to herself, already knowing what the conversation was going to be about. "What is it, Carol?" Shirley asked as she felt her come up beside her. "Don't act like you don't know what I'm going to ask you about," she said with a grin. "Carol, I don't want to talk about what you think me and Mike have. We bumped into each other by accident, and he was enough of a gentleman to help me pick up my things. End of story." Carol pouted and stopped Shirley in the middle of the pathway, impeding the student traffic and causing others to grace them with looks as sharp as the ends of daggers. "Oh, pooh on you. You're no fun, Shirls. Come on, we're going to be late for chem." "I just don't see why you won't take my advice and try to get to know him. A relationship could be good for you." Carol whined all the way to chemistry class. Shirley never heard a word of it, however. She had acquired a high tolerance and learned long ago to block her out. She quietly took her seat just before the bell rang. Shirley continued to block out her surroundings as her teacher reviewed a lesson for an upcoming final. She was only roused from her trance-like stare at the whiteboard when the door opened and Chu entered. She quickly recognized the two as being the school's principal and the new girl from her previous class. "Oh, hello, Mr. Hilton," she heard her teacher greet the principal. "What can I do for you this afternoon?" Mr. Hilton smiled and gently grasped Mary's shoulder. "I have for you here," he drawled, "a new student, Mr. Franks. Mary has transferred from Brighton High." Shirley's eyes shifted to Mary's frail and shy demeanor. Her gaze ate up her loose white tee, worn-out cardigan, and torn jeans. Mary's messy ponytail fell over her shoulder lightly. Mr. Franks murmured a bit of thanks to the principal and instructed Mary to take her seat directly in front of Shirley. A small groan slithered from her lips. She drew her hand over her face. "Sheesh," she thought. Her eyes moved to Mary as she quietly took her seat. Shirley took note of how she nervously pictured her sweater, as if she knew someone was watching her. Shirley smirked to herself, realizing that Mary did have someone watching her. In fact, their eyes were hot like coals and taking in her entire demeanor. Throughout the class period, Shirley paid little attention to Mr. Frank's review lesson. Her attention instead was almost entirely on Mary. It took the bells ringing for her to snap out of her daydreaming. "You're drooling again." With a start, her eyes lifted to find Carol standing over her, an inquisitive expression on her face. Shirley went to wipe at her chin again. "I was not." Carol frowned and leaned over Shirley's desk, whispering, "You totally were. Over the new girl, too." Shirley's brows furrowed again at her friend's accusation. "Excuse me?" she asked, not yet ready to confess her best-kept secret. At least what she thought was her best-kept secret anyhow. "You heard me," Carol muttered. "Don't even try to deny it, Shirls. I saw the way you were leering at her. You couldn't keep your eyes off of her." Shirley sighed. The jig is up, I guess," she quietly thought. "Carol," she began, but didn't know what to say and simply let it go. "Shirls," Carol breathed, catching her chin in her hand to make her look at her in the eye. "Just because you're gay doesn't mean I love you any less." A slow smile claimed Shirley's lips. She never thought she'd have her friend's back on this, not with the way she'd been pushing dates with different guys down her throat. "Thanks, Carol," she whispered gently. "Your affection doesn't help, though," she said, and lightly added as her lips worked into a playful smirk, "You're straight." Carol laughed at the comment and lightly nudged Shirley as they made their way out of the classroom.